Save me, plant your seed in me. 5 Apache girls pled with the lone mountain man. The mountain man had always lived alone in the wild, far from towns and villages. His cabin was small and rough, made from logs he had cut himself. Smoke curled from the stone chimney every morning, and he kept a fire burning for warmth at night. Most people in the nearby settlements knew him only by stories. They said he was strong and clever, a man who could survive anywhere. They also said he spoke little, and some thought he preferred it that way. In truth, the mountain man liked silence. It gave him peace. It gave him time to think. And in the quiet, he felt free. One late afternoon, the sky began to turn a pale orange. The wind whispered through the trees, rustling the dry leaves on the forest floor. The mountain man was checking his traps for rabbits and squirrels when he heard something strange. At first it was faint, soft voices carried on the wind. They seemed far away, like echoes from a distant hill. He paused and listened. The voices were not the usual sounds of animals. They were human. They called for help. The mountain man's hand rested on the handle of his hunting knife. He was cautious. There were dangers in the forest he knew well. Sometimes travelers lost their way. Sometimes raiders passed through, and sometimes children wandered into the woods and were left alone. But the voices sounded urgent. They were frightened. The mountain man frowned and decided to follow the sound. Step by careful step, he moved through the underbrush, his boots barely making a sound on the dry leaves. As he climbed a small ridge, the voices grew clearer. He could hear words now, though not all of them. One voice repeated, almost like a whisper, "Save me. Stand with me." The mountain man's heart tightened. He did not know who called, but the fear in the voices was unmistakable. He moved faster, weaving between trees and rocks, his eyes scanning for movement, and then he saw them. 5 young Apache girls huddled together beside a stream. Their clothes were torn, their faces streaked with dirt and tears. They looked small and fragile in the vast forest, but their eyes were wide with hope as they saw him. The mountain man stopped a few steps away, lowering his voice. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. "I'd do it." The girls froze for a moment, unsure if they could trust him. One of them, slightly older than the rest, stepped forward. Her voice was shaky but strong. "Please, help us," she said. "We are alone. We do not know the way home. Please stand with us." The mountain man looked at each girl carefully. He noticed the youngest, barely 10, clinging to her sister's arm. Another had a deep scratch on her arm, likely from falling while running through the forest. Their eyes showed exhaustion, fear, and something else, courage. Somehow, they had survived this long on their own, and now they were asking him for help. He nodded slowly. "I can help you," he said, "but you must stay close. The forest is dangerous." The girls' faces lit up with relief, though their fear had not fully disappeared. They moved closer to him, one by one, as if forming a protective circle around each other. The mountain man felt a strange responsibility settle over him. He was a man who had chosen solitude, but now, for the first time in many years, someone depended on him. The girls began to tell their story, their words spilling out quickly, all at once. They had been traveling with their community when raiders attacked. People ran in every direction. Families were separated. Some were caught, some were hidden, and some had escaped. These 5 had managed to flee together. But now they were lost. They did not know the way to their settlement, and night was coming fast. The mountain man listened carefully, asking questions only when he needed to understand. He had learned long ago that listening often told more than talking. He decided to lead them through the forest, away from danger. They moved quietly, the girls following close behind. The youngest held onto his hand sometimes, her small fingers gripping tightly. He taught them to watch the ground for footprints and to listen for the sounds of animals. He showed them how to step lightly over dry branches to avoid making noise that could attract attention. The journey was slow, and the forest was thick with trees and underbrush, but the mountain man knew the land well. He knew how to find safe paths where no one would see them. As they walked, he noticed how the girls looked at the forest differently. They were afraid of it, but they were also curious. Every bird song, every rustling leaf, seemed to capture their attention for a moment before fear returned. He realized that they had been forced into the forest by danger, not by choice. The mountain man felt a protective instinct rising in him. He thought of how vulnerable they were, and yet how brave they had been to survive this far. Evening came, and the sky turned shades of pink and purple. The forest grew darker, and the sounds of the night began to stir. The mountain man found a small clearing near a stream and decided it was safe enough to rest. He gathered some dry wood and started a small fire. The girls huddled near the warmth, their faces softening as the light touched them. They were still wary, but they were beginning to trust him. The mountain man gave them some food he had packed earlier, dried meat and berries. They ate quickly, hunger and relief mixing in their movements. As the night deepened, the mountain man kept watch. He could not sleep, not yet. He thought about the journey ahead and the dangers they might face. But he also thought about the courage of these 5 girls. They had faced so much and still kept moving forward. In their eyes, he saw hope. And in that hope, he felt something he had not felt in many years: connection. Finally, as the fire burned low, he spoke softly to them. "Tomorrow we continue," he said. "I will keep you safe, but you must stay close and follow my lead." The girls nodded, some resting their heads on their knees, others leaning against each other. The youngest whispered again, almost to herself, "Save me, stand with me." The mountain man's heart tightened at her words. He understood. They were asking for more than safety. They were asking for trust, for guidance, for someone to stand with them when the world felt against them. The forest night stretched on, filled with the sounds of crickets and distant owls. The mountain man kept the fire small, its light flickering over the 5 girls who slept in a circle, exhausted but alive. He thought about the journey that lay ahead. It would be hard. There would be danger, obstacles, and moments when fear might take over. But he also knew something else. He was not alone anymore. These girls had chosen him, and he had chosen to help them. For the first time in years, he felt a part of something bigger than himself. And so, under the quiet stars and the whispering trees, the mountain man stayed awake, keeping watch. He had accepted the plea, and he would stand with them, no matter what came next. Morning came quietly in the forest. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the tall trees, casting long shadows on the forest floor. The mountain man stirred, careful not to wake the 5 girls. They had slept huddled together, leaning on each other for warmth. Their breathing was steady now, but the fear from the previous day still lingered in their faces. He quietly gathered a few small branches for the fire and checked their surroundings. Everything seemed calm, yet he knew the forest could change in an instant. Once the girls were awake, he offered them a small breakfast: berries, dried meat, and a little water from the stream. They ate quickly, their small hands trembling slightly. The mountain man noticed how careful they were, looking around constantly, as if expecting danger to appear at any moment. He smiled softly at them, trying to ease their fear. "We must move carefully today," he said. Stay close to me. If we follow the path I know, we will find safety." The girls nodded, some still quiet, others whispering to each other. One of them, the eldest, spoke up. "We can help too," she said. "We know the forest a little. We can watch for traps and animals." The mountain man considered this. Their knowledge was small but important. "Very well," he said. "If you see anything strange, tell me immediately. Together, we can be stronger." The mountain man led them along a narrow trail that wound between trees and over small streams. The girls followed closely, their small feet making almost no sound on the soft earth. Birds chirped above, and the occasional squirrel darted across the path. Yet the mountain man remained alert. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves made him pause. He knew the forest could hide dangers, snakes, wolves, or even humans who meant harm. As they walked, the mountain man began to teach the girls small survival skills. He showed them how to step quietly over dry leaves and broken branches. He taught them how to watch the ground for footprints and how to notice when an animal or person had passed that way. The girls listened carefully, repeating his instructions. They stumbled at first, but soon they moved more confidently. The mountain man felt a quiet pride. These girls were brave and smart, and they were learning quickly. The journey was long, and the forest grew thicker as they moved deeper. Sunlight struggled to reach the ground through the dense branches. The air was cool and damp, carrying the smell of earth and moss. The mountain man led them across a shallow stream, pointing out the safest stones to step on. One of the girls, the youngest, almost slipped on a wet rock. The mountain man caught her quickly, lifting her back to her feet. She clung to him for a moment, then nodded shyly. The other girls looked at him with a mixture of awe and relief. They were beginning to trust him completely. They continued for hours, stopping occasionally to rest. During these breaks, the girls spoke softly about their homes and families. The eldest told the mountain man about her younger siblings and how she had tried to keep them safe during the raid. Another girl spoke of the animals she loved, especially horses. The mountain man listened quietly. He did not ask too many questions, knowing that talking helped them feel normal and safe. Slowly, he felt a connection growing between them, a bond formed in trust and shared struggle. As the afternoon came, dark clouds began to gather overhead. The wind picked up, and the first drops of rain fell. The mountain man decided to find shelter quickly. He led the girls to a small cave hidden by trees and rocks. It was not large, but it was safe from the rain and offered protection from predators. Inside, the girls huddled together while the mountain man started a small fire using dry twigs he had collected earlier. The warm light of the fire reflected in their eyes, giving them comfort and courage. Rain poured outside, creating a soft rhythm that filled the cave. The mountain man handed the girls a little more food and water. They ate quietly, listening to the sound of the storm. One of the girls, the one who had first spoken to him, asked, "Do you think the raiders will find us?" The mountain man shook his head. "Not if we stay quiet and move carefully."
"They cannot follow us if we are smart." The girls seemed to relax slightly, believing his words.
They felt safer in his presence, even though the forest outside was wild and unpredictable. The rain stopped by evening, leaving the forest fresh and clean. The mountain man led the girls back onto the trail, moving with care. The sun had already set behind the trees, and the sky was painted with shades of orange and purple. Shadows stretched across the ground, making the forest seem larger and more mysterious. The mountain man kept the girls close, whispering instructions as they moved. Every sound, every movement mattered now. They had to be careful until they reached true safety. As they walked, the girls began to notice the mountain man's skills more clearly. He could move silently, spotting dangers before they appeared. He pointed out berries that were safe to eat, water sources that were clean, and paths that were hidden from view. The girls watched him closely, learning without even realizing it. Their admiration grew, but so did their reliance on him. They knew that without his guidance, they would be lost. The forest was not only dangerous, it was beautiful. The girls began to notice small things, the way sunlight danced on leaves, the sound of a bird calling from high above, the smell of wild flowers hidden in the underbrush. The mountain man encouraged them to notice, to stay aware of their surroundings. "The forest is alive," he said. "If you respect it, it will guide and protect you." The girls listened, and for the first time since the attack, they felt a little peace. Night fell again, and the mountain man knew they needed another safe place to rest. He found a sheltered area near a fallen tree, surrounded by thick bushes. It was hidden and safe for the night. He started a small fire and let the girls sit close for warmth. They were tired, but no longer as fearful. They had survived another day in the wild, guided by the mountain man's skill and care. Around the fire, they shared stories of the past, dreams of the future, and small laughs that reminded them they were still children, even in the middle of danger. The mountain man watched them closely as they slept that night. He thought about the journey ahead. It would not be easy. There were still dangers in the forest, and the raiders could still be nearby. But he also knew that these girls had courage, and together they could face what was coming. He felt a quiet determination. He had promised to protect them, and he would not break that promise. As he stared into the fire, the mountain man remembered the girl's words from the first day. "Save me. Stand with me." He understood them now more than ever. They were not just asking for protection. They were asking for someone to believe in them, someone to guide them when they were afraid. And he had chosen to do just that. The night was quiet, filled with the sounds of the forest, crickets, the distant call of an owl, and the rustling of leaves. The mountain man stayed awake, keeping watch while the 5 girls rested safely around the fire. He thought about how their journey had only just begun. There would be challenges ahead, but he also felt hope. Together, they could survive anything. And in that hope, the mountain man found a small, unexpected happiness. Morning would come again, and with it, a new day of travel. But for now, in the quiet of the forest, the mountain man and the 5 girls rested. They had survived another day, and each step had brought them closer to safety, and the bond between them grew stronger with every passing moment, forming a trust that would carry them through the dangers still to come. The morning was quiet as the mountain man and the 5 girls continued their journey. The forest around them was dense, with tall trees that blocked most of the sunlight. The air smelled of damp earth and moss, and the sound of birds calling echoed softly between the trunks. The girls were still tired from the previous days, but they walked with determination, knowing the mountain man would guide them safely. As they moved deeper into the forest, the mountain man noticed signs of danger. Broken branches and footprints in the soft soil told him that others had passed this way recently. He motioned for the girls to stop and crouch down to examine the tracks. "These are not animals," he whispered. "Someone else has been here. We must be careful." The girls huddled closer, their eyes wide with fear. The eldest whispered, "Could it be the raiders?" The mountain man nodded slightly but remained calm. Panic would not help them. He led the girls through a series of narrow paths, moving quietly to avoid making noise. He taught them how to walk softly, how to step lightly on rocks and leaves, and how to pause and listen for danger. The girls tried to mimic his movements, and though they stumbled at times, they improved quickly. The mountain man smiled softly to himself. Even in fear, they were learning growing stronger with each step. By midday, they reached a small clearing with a stream running through it. The girls were thirsty and tired, so the mountain man allowed them to rest for a while. They drank from the stream, careful to avoid the muddy edges, and picked a few wild berries nearby. While they ate, the mountain man scanned the area, checking for anything unusual. He noticed a faint trail leading out of the clearing, hidden under fallen leaves. "We follow this path," he said. "It will take us closer to safety, but we must remain alert." The girls nodded, gathering their strength for the next stretch of the journey. They had learned to rely on the mountain man, and their trust in him had grown. They no longer clung to him out of fear, but walked beside him with a sense of cautious confidence. The mountain man felt a deep responsibility for their safety. He had never cared for anyone like this before, and it made him more alert, more focused on every detail of the forest around them. As the afternoon sun began to lower in the sky, the forest grew darker. Shadows stretched across the ground, and the sounds of animals became sharper in the stillness. The mountain man led the girls carefully, using his knowledge of the land to find the safest paths. Suddenly he held up his hand, signaling them to stop. From the bushes ahead came a soft, rustling sound. The girls froze, fear returning to their faces. The mountain man crouched low, peering through the leaves. A small group of wild animals emerged, a family of deer, startled by their presence. The girls sighed with relief, some giggling quietly at their own fear. The mountain man nodded and motioned for them to continue. "Even small sounds can tell us about the world around us," he said. "Pay attention, and you will know what is safe and what is not." The girls listened carefully, understanding that every step in the forest required awareness and care. Hours passed as they moved through thick underbrush and climbed over rocky terrain. Their muscles ached, and the youngest girl began to lag behind. The mountain man noticed and slowed his pace, offering his hand. She took it gratefully, and with his support she continued without falling. The girls learned to rely not just on his skills, but on his patience and care. They felt protected, yet they were also learning resilience. As the sun began to set, a cold wind swept through the forest. The mountain man decided they needed shelter for the night. He led them to a small cave tucked behind a cluster of rocks. It was hidden from view and offered protection from wind and any potential predators. The girls settled inside, gathering close for warmth. The mountain man built a small fire with dry twigs and leaves, its light flickering softly across the cave walls. The girls were quiet at first, still shaken from the day's journey, but slowly they began to talk, sharing small stories and experiences. The eldest spoke about her family and how she had tried to protect the younger girls during the raid. Another girl spoke of the animals she had loved, the birds and horses she had grown up with. The mountain man listened, nodding occasionally, but mostly keeping watch. He knew that listening was as important as guiding. Their voices brought life to the cave, softening the fear that lingered from earlier. Night fell, and the forest outside grew darker and more mysterious. The mountain man kept the fire small, careful not to draw attention. He showed the girls how to stay quiet and watch for movement. Every sound mattered. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves, even the distant call of an owl could signal danger. The girls practiced staying still, their eyes alert. They were learning to survive, to trust themselves, as well as the mountain man. Suddenly, a shadow moved at the edge of the firelight. The mountain man froze, his hand resting on his knife. The girls watched silently, their hearts beating fast. A fox appeared, curious about the fire. It sniffed the air, then disappeared back into the forest. The girls laughed softly, relief washing over them. The mountain man smiled, though his eyes remained vigilant. Even small creatures could remind them that the forest was alive and unpredictable. The mountain man then spoke gently to the girls. "Tomorrow we continue our journey," he said. "The path will not be easy. We may face rivers, cliffs, and other challenges, but we are stronger now because we have each other. Trust in yourselves and trust in me." The girls nodded, some leaning on each other, others staring into the fire. They had faced fear and danger together and had survived. The mountain man saw determination in their eyes, a courage that surprised even him. The night passed quietly, though the mountain man never fully slept. He kept watch, listening to the forest and ensuring the girls were safe. When morning came, he woke the girls gently. They prepared to leave, washing their faces in the stream outside the cave and gathering their few belongings. The mountain man led them along a hidden path, teaching them to step carefully, watch for footprints, and stay aware of every sound. The forest challenged them constantly. Streams became obstacles, rocky slopes made their feet slip, and thick underbrush slowed their progress. But with each challenge, the mountain man guided them, showing patience and skill. The girls learned quickly, helping each other when one struggled, encouraging one another when fear returned. They discovered their own strength, courage, and teamwork. By midday, they reached a hill that offered a small view of the land beyond the forest. From there, the mountain man could see the distant mountains and a valley below. He pointed out the direction they needed to go, and the girls' faces brightened with hope. They were closer to safety, but the journey was not over. The mountain man reminded them to remain vigilant. "Danger can come at any time," he said. "Stay alert, and we will make it." As they continued, the mountain man shared small lessons about the forest. He taught them to find edible plants, recognize animal tracks, and identify signs of weather changes. The girls absorbed every word, their eyes wide with curiosity and respect. They were no longer just survivors. They were learners, gaining skills that would help them long after this journey ended. Evening approached, and the mountain man found a safe place to rest. They were near a small stream that would provide water for the night. He built a fire, and the girls gathered close, sharing stories and small laughs. Their bond grew stronger with every moment. They were no longer 5 frightened girls. They were a team, guided by the mountain man, learning to face the forest together. That night, as the fire burned low and the girls slept, the mountain man thought about the journey ahead. He knew there would be more dangers. Maybe raiders, maybe wild animals, maybe treacherous terrain, but he also knew that these girls had courage, and together they could face anything. He remembered the plea from the first day, "Save me, stand with me." He had done so, and now he would continue, no matter what challenges came next. Under the quiet stars, the mountain man watched over the sleeping girls. He felt a small, steady warmth in his chest. For the first time in many years, he was not alone in the forest. He had responsibility, trust, and connection. And he knew that the journey ahead, though difficult, would shape them all in ways they could not yet imagine. The next morning, the mountain man woke before sunrise. The forest was still, except for the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird. The 5 girls were stirring, rubbing their eyes and yawning, but they trusted the mountain man to lead them safely. Today, he told himself, would be a test of more than their endurance. It would test their courage. They were closer to safety now, but danger was never far in the wilderness. As they walked along a narrow trail, the mountain man noticed fresh footprints in the soft earth. They were larger than the girls' feet and uneven, as if the person who made them had hurried. He crouched to examine them closely. His eyes narrowed. "We are not alone," he whispered. The girls instinctively huddled behind him, fear returning to their eyes. "Stay close," he said softly. "Do exactly as I tell you." He led them quietly through the underbrush, choosing paths that would hide their presence. The forest around them was dense, making it difficult for anyone to see clearly. But the mountain man knew this land well. He knew where to move silently and how to use shadows for cover. The girls followed his instructions carefully, holding each other's hands when the path became tricky. They had learned much since their journey began, but this was the first time they faced a real threat so close. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence, a branch snapping underfoot. The mountain man froze, listening. From the trees ahead, two men appeared. They were rough-looking, armed, and clearly searching for something. Or someone. The girls gasped softly, hiding behind the mountain man. His heart pounded, but his mind was calm. Panic would make them vulnerable. He scanned the area, looking for a way to evade the men. "There is a path to the left," he whispered to the girls. "Follow me exactly. Do not speak." They nodded, fear and determination mixing in their eyes. Step by careful step, he led them off the main trail, weaving through thick bushes and behind fallen logs. The men did not see them. The mountain man's knowledge of the land, combined with the girls' alertness, allowed them to move silently, almost like shadows. Once they were hidden, the mountain man crouched and spoke softly. "They are searching for someone, probably the ones who escaped the raid. We must be careful. If they find us, we fight only if we must, but our best chance is to stay unseen." The girls listened intently. Their trust in him had grown so much that they followed his advice without hesitation. They had learned patience, observation, and the importance of staying calm under pressure. Hours passed as they moved cautiously through the forest. The men searching for them seemed to be following a different trail, but the mountain man could sense their presence. He taught the girls to watch the birds, to notice how animals reacted, and to listen for the smallest sounds. Everything in the forest was a signal, a guide to danger or safety. The girls began to understand, moving more confidently while still relying on him. As the sun climbed high in the sky, they reached a small river with fast-moving water. Crossing it was risky. The current could sweep the girls away if they were not careful. The mountain man examined the river and found a shallow area with stones large enough to step on. He guided each girl carefully, holding their hands when necessary. The youngest girl slipped once, but he caught her quickly. "Stay close and trust me," he said. She nodded, gripping his hand tightly, and moved forward without further hesitation. After crossing the river, they took a short rest. The girls were exhausted, their clothes wet and muddy, but their spirits were stronger than before. They had faced danger and survived, and their confidence was growing. The mountain man reminded them that the journey was not over. "We must keep moving," he said. "There is still more forest ahead, and the raiders may be near. We cannot afford to be careless." By late afternoon, the mountain man spotted a small hill with a clear view of the surrounding land. He decided to take a short break there. From the hilltop, they could see a valley below, where the forest thinned and signs of human activity appeared. This meant they were closer to safety, but it also meant the risk of being seen increased. The mountain man taught the girls how to stay low, how to use the natural terrain for cover, and how to move quietly toward their goal. As they descended the hill, the sound of shouting reached their ears. The men from earlier had discovered the trail the mountain man had left behind. They were coming closer. The girls froze, but the mountain man remained calm. He whispered instructions, guiding them to a dense cluster of trees and rocks. "Hide here. Do not move. Do not speak," he said. The girls huddled together, their breathing shallow but steady. The raiders passed by, their voices loud and angry. They searched the area, unaware that the mountain man and the girls were only a few feet away. He waited until they were gone before motioning for the girls to continue. "We must be careful," he said. "They are close, but we have time to move quietly to a safer place." The girls nodded, their trust in him absolute. They had seen him face danger calmly, and that gave them courage. Night fell, and the forest became dark and mysterious. The mountain man knew they needed a secure place to rest. He found a small cave hidden behind thick bushes, similar to their previous shelter but larger. Inside, the girls settled close to the fire he built. They were exhausted but relieved to be safe for the night. The mountain men checked the surroundings, ensuring no one could approach unnoticed. The girls spoke softly about the day, about how they had felt fear, and how the mountain men's guidance had kept them safe. The eldest girl said, "You saved us again. We could not have done this without you." The mountain man smiled quietly. "You have also been brave. Today you learned courage and patience. That is as important as anything else."
The girls felt proud, realizing they were becoming stronger with each passing challenge.
The mountain man thought about the journey ahead. He knew that the raiders were still in the area, and more dangers could appear. But he also knew the girls were no longer helpless. They had learned to follow instructions, to observe the forest, and to trust both him and themselves. Together, they were stronger than any threat. As the night grew deep, the mountain man stayed awake, keeping watch. The girls slept, some leaning on each other, others curling up near the fire. He remembered the words from the first day, "Save me, stand with me." He had done so, and now he would continue to do so, facing whatever dangers the forest or humans could bring.
Under the stars, the mountain man felt a quiet determination.
He had promised to protect these girls, and he would not fail. The challenges had tested them, but they had grown stronger, braver, and more united. He knew that tomorrow the journey would continue, and the final part of their path to safety was near. The next morning the mountain man woke to the sound of birds singing softly. The forest was quiet, peaceful, as if it had accepted their presence for a moment. The 5 girls stirred from their sleep, rubbing their eyes and stretching. They were tired, but something had changed in them. They moved with confidence, not fear. The mountain man looked at them and felt a sense of pride. They had survived so much already, and today their journey toward safety would finally reach its end. They set out quietly, the mountain man leading the way through the dense forest. The air was cool, and the sun filtered gently through the branches, casting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. The girls followed closely, stepping carefully over roots and stones. They had learned so much from him, how to watch for danger, how to move silently, and how to trust both themselves and the man who protected them. Today, all of that knowledge would help them reach safety. After several hours of walking, they came to a small clearing. In the distance, they could see smoke rising from a few huts, and the sound of voices carried on the wind. The mountain man crouched and studied the land. "That is the settlement," he whispered. "We are close. We must still be careful, but soon you will be safe." The girls' eyes widened. Hope, bright and strong, lit their faces. Some of them whispered softly, "Home," as if speaking the word made it more real. The journey to the settlement was not easy. The path narrowed, with thick brush and uneven ground. The mountain man led the girls carefully, guiding them through the safest routes. He showed them how to step over loose rocks, how to avoid making noise, and how to use the shadows of trees for cover. The girls moved steadily, their trust in him absolute. They had faced fear together, and now They were almost there. Suddenly, a shout echoed through the trees. The girls froze, and the mountain man's hand went to his knife. From the distance, a figure appeared, a man from the settlement, running toward them. Relief and joy mixed in the mountain man's mind. The man shouted again, "There they are! The girls are safe!" The mountain man stepped forward, motioning for the girls to stay calm. They had come so far, and now the final moment of their journey was near. As they approached the settlement, families began to gather. Faces filled with worry and relief appeared in the crowd. Mothers and fathers ran toward the girls, their arms outstretched. Tears of joy flowed freely as the children were embraced by their families. The youngest girl clung to her mother, crying softly, while the others were hugged tightly by siblings and relatives. The mountain man watched quietly, feeling a deep satisfaction. He had kept his promise. He had stood with them and guided them to safety. The settlement welcomed the mountain man with gratitude and respect. The elders spoke to him, offering thanks and praise for his courage and skill. The girls spoke too, their voices bright and clear. "He saved us," they said, looking at him with admiration. "He taught us to be brave and careful. We would not be alive without him." The mountain man nodded quietly, uncomfortable with praise but quietly proud of the girl's words. He had acted out of duty and care, not for recognition, but the appreciation touched him deeply. In the following days, the girls recovered from their journey. They shared their experiences with their families, telling them about the mountain man's guidance, his patience, and his bravery. They spoke of the forest, the dangers, and the lessons they had learned along the way. The settlement listened with awe, realizing that these girls were stronger, braver, and wiser than before. The mountain man remained mostly silent, observing quietly, but his presence brought reassurance to everyone around him. The girls and their families wanted him to stay, to be part of their community. They offered food, shelter, and friendship, but the mountain man knew his life was still tied to the forest. He had chosen solitude once, and though he had formed bonds with the girls, his path remained different. Still, he promised to visit, to ensure that they remained safe, and to see how they grew. The girls smiled, knowing that the bond they had formed would last forever. One evening, the mountain man stood on a small hill overlooking the settlement. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He could see the girls playing, laughing with each other and their families. Their eyes held the same light of courage he had seen during their journey. He felt a quiet warmth in his chest. Though he would return to the wilderness, he had made a difference. He had stood with them when they needed him most. The girls ran to the edge of the hill, waving at him. The mountain man waved back, a small smile on his face. They did not need to speak. The trust and gratitude between them were clear. He had guided them through danger, taught them lessons about the forest, and helped them find safety. In turn, they had reminded him of the value of connection, courage, and responsibility. As night fell, the settlement grew quiet. Families settled into their homes, children asleep, with dreams of safety and joy. The mountain man walked back toward the edge of the forest, pausing to look at the stars above. He thought about the journey, the fear, the challenges, and the victories. He thought about the girls, their bravery, and the bond that had formed. Though his life was solitary, he knew that he had been part of something important, something lasting. The stars twinkled softly, and the wind whispered through the trees. The mountain man felt at peace. He had saved the girls, stood with them, and ensured their safety. The lessons they had learned would stay with them forever, as would the memory of his guidance and care. In return, they had left a mark on him, a reminder that even in solitude, one could make a difference, one life at a time. The girls ran to the mountain man, giving him gifts of berries, small flowers, and handmade trinkets. Their smiles were bright, their laughter clear. He accepted the gifts with a quiet nod, knowing that they were tokens of their gratitude and affection. They would never forget him, and he would never forget them. The mountain man began his walk back into the forest. The girls waved until they could no longer see him, their voices calling out, "Thank you. Goodbye. Be safe." He waved once more, stepping into the shadows of the trees. He felt a sense of completion, of purpose fulfilled. He had faced danger, guided the girls, and ensured their safety. His promise had been kept. As he disappeared into the forest, the mountain man looked back one last time. The settlement, the girls, and their families were safe. The bond they had formed would remain, carried in memory and trust. And though the mountain man returned to solitude, he did so with the knowledge that courage, kindness, and guidance could change lives forever. The forest welcomed him back with its familiar sights and sounds. He walked quietly, his steps confident and steady. The mountain man had completed his journey with the girls, but his own journey would continue. He had learned that even a lone person could make a difference, and that sometimes standing with others in their moment of need was the greatest act of strength one could show. Under the quiet stars and the soft whisper of the trees, the mountain man disappeared into the wilderness. The 5 girls were safe, their families reunited, and their lives forever changed by the man who had stood with them when they needed him most. And in the heart of the forest, the mountain man felt a quiet satisfaction knowing he had done what was right, leaving a legacy of courage, trust, and hope that would endure far beyond that journey.